So this is what we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to go through a bit about kind of who the ASA are, who CAP are, and then I'm going to kind of go on to misleading advertising. I wanted to do things that were really relevant to you guys, but unfortunately not all of it's going to be relevant to every single one of you, just because of the nature of it. Promotional marketing is something that I wanted to touch on because almost all businesses do something promotional at some point. And then I'm going to move on to kind of beauty filters and before and after images because that's something that I was asked to raise. Hashtag ad, when is something an ad and when does it need to be labelled? And then testimonials and endorsements. So we've got a lot to get through, so I'm going to be whizzing through a little bit. And I'm sorry if it does feel a bit incongruous and it doesn't quite make sense as to why I'm kind of flitting between promotional marketing and beauty stuff, but I wanted to try and get as much content as I could that is relevant to a lot of you guys. So, who are the ASA? So they're the Advertising Standards Authority, not agency, as every single newspaper in the world seems to think we are. And they're the ones that administer the UK advertising codes. They administer the CAP code, which is the non-broadcast code, and the BCAP code, which is the broadcast code of advertising in the UK. Every single advert that you would put on social media, or you would put on your website, or you would put on a poster or TV, has to come under the CAP code or BCAP code, depending on what it is. So the ASA are the ones that administer and enforce the rules. They're the ones that would investigate complaints. They're the ones that kind of would deal with the public if the public ever made a complaint about your advertising. And CAP are the ones that write the codes and they enforce the codes with like a compliance team. I'm actually part of CAP, so I'm part of the copy advice team. I give pre-publication advice to advertisers before an ad kind of goes up as a poster or goes up, you know, on a leaflet or on social media, things like that. So that's what I do. But regulatory policy is also in the CAP side, and they're the ones that write all the codes. So we're always constantly updating the codes depending on what's happening. In the next kind of year or so, we're going to be having new codes relating to zero alcohol, for instance, which wasn't a thing a few years ago, but now zero alcohol is a massive market, so they're introducing rules with that. So here's what's covered by the ASA and CAP. Like I said, TV, radio, posters, online, leaflets, loads more, which I won't go into. What isn't covered by the ASA, so things related solely to causes and ideas. What we mean by that is a poster that says, you know, the world's heating up, we need to do something. And it doesn't ask you to kind of do anything related to their business, whereas if they ask for donations, that would come under the CAP code. Anything that's purely editorial, so anything that is genuinely in the Daily Mail but isn't paid for by a brand, that's not covered by us. General PR stuff is also not covered by us. Sponsorship and gifts, which is actually the CMA. Political advertisements, which gets us out of a lot of trouble when the general election comes along. And foreign media, because a lot of countries have their own ASA equivalent. So here's what's covered by the ASA online. This is where I imagine a majority of probably your business is kind of running these days. I mean, obviously posters and TV and stuff are still huge, but most businesses are kind of focusing on online. So your own social media feed, that means kind of your own Twitter feed, or sorry, X, I will call it Twitter throughout the presentation, I'm not going to change. Your Twitter feed, your Instagram page, your Facebook page, they're all covered by the ASA. Any paid for ad space, so like sponsored posts or promoted posts instead of tweets, no, I'm just going to call them tweets. Promoted tweets, pre-roll ads on YouTube, all of those are covered. And third-party social media, so what we mean by that is like influencers, so if you ever engage influencers to advertise anything for you, that's all covered by the ASA as well. So the CAP code is 22 sections. There's children, alcohol, e-cigarettes, there's also things like data, there's gambling, there's rolling papers. We've got kind of a section on lots of different things. Most things are covered under section 3, which is misleading advertising, and section 4, which is harm and offence. And the BCAP code has 32 sections. It's got everything that the CAP code has, but it also has lots of things about scheduling as well for TV ads and things like that. So on to misleading advertising. As I said, it's section 3 of the CAP code. What we ask ourselves whenever we look at any ads for anything is, well, not every ad, but a misleading ad, we would ask ourselves whether the average consumer to whom the ad was directed would be likely to be misled into making a transactional decision that they wouldn't otherwise have taken. When we say transactional decision, we don't just mean monetary, we don't mean did they buy something off the back of it. We mean, did they click something to find out more? Did they open a separate web page to do something else? Anything that could draw them in. Oh, I don't know what's happened to my mic. Oh, hello, okay. Anything that could affect whether they kind of clicked for more information or sent an email to find out more information, that will count as a transactional decision. So we look at whether the average consumer would have been misled through anything in that advertising. When we say average consumer, we mean someone who is reasonably well informed, observant and circumspect. Obviously there's always going to be people who are going to be misled by something, and there's always going to be people who are never misled by anything. So we have to go by the average person. Would they likely to be misled by the ad? The main rules in section 3 that are important are 3.1, which is marketing communications must not materially mislead or be likely to do so. And well, obviously, as you can tell from 3.1, you could basically get rid of the rest of the section, but we have got more rules to do with kind of pricing and things. 3.3 is also a great one, and it says they must not mislead by omitting material information, by hiding it or presenting it in an unclear, unintelligible kind of way. Everything we look at can kind of be covered by those kind of rules. So I'm moving on to section 8. I told you I'd be flitting around, which is promotional marketing and significant terms for terms and conditions. Here are examples of promotional marketing that the ASA would look at. So it's things like buy one get one free offers, competitions and prize draws, special discount offers, scratch cards, instant wins. If you do any giveaways on Instagram, all of that is promotional marketing. Even things like 20% off would be promotional marketing for the purposes of section 8. So there's tons of rules within the promotional marketing section. And here are some of the main categories. So things like administration, was your promotion administered fairly? Availability, if you're giving everyone a free toothbrush, have you got enough toothbrushes? Don't know why I forgot that word. Significant conditions, so you need to put all the significant conditions relating to the promotion in the ad as well, which is the main thing people fall down on. I'm going to be going into that in greater detail. Price promotions, so, you know, things like if you give someone a free holiday, you need to make all of that kind of clear, and we've got a separate section as well, and you have to award the prize normally within 30 days, things like that. Then responsibility is another section, and charity-linked promotions, so if you're ever doing a promotion with a charity, there's a whole separate section for that as well. So, significant conditions are the things that everyone falls down on, unfortunately, and it's the thing that, as someone who gives advice to advertisers, I give a lot of advice about significant conditions, so much so that I have it saved as a quick part on my Outlook, because everyone forgets them. So, the rule is 8.17, and it states all marketing communications referring to promotional marketing must communicate all significant conditions or information where the omission of such condition or information is likely to be misleading. So what we mean by that is if you are giving away a free lipstick, for instance, you need to kind of say only people in the UK can enter, age 18 plus, we're giving away one lipstick of this particular brand. All of these things are significant conditions and they need to be in the ad. So how to participate as well. Free entry route, if there is one, needs to be explained. The start and closing date, which is something that's so basic but loads of people forget to put that in their posts. Proof of purchase, if it's necessary in the actual ad. Limitations on availability, so if there's only one prize or whatever, make it clear. Number and nature of the prizes, any other restrictions. Promoter's name and address, if it's not already clear, which it usually is. If you're going to be posting something on your Instagram, it's probably clear who the promoter is. So where should they be shown? They should be prominent in all advertising and positioned close to the headline offer. If the promotion is in something that is genuinely limited in time and space, it must include as much information as practicable, which I always hate that word because I never say it properly. And then it should direct consumers to an easily accessible source. So in this example, I hope you can see, I'm sorry it's so small, but it's a free caravan, well not a free caravan, it's a winner caravan promotion. So they've said, like the page, share the page, tag 3 friends, you want to win a caravan, you can win this caravan. But there's no information about when the competition closes, you know, how many times can you enter? can you add like 6 friends? Can they all enter as well? What's the caravan? Like, is it blue? Is it pink? Like, what brand is it? There's no information at all. So people wouldn't know if they should enter. Like, has it closed? Did it close last year? No one knows. And things like significant additions, you know, if it's for people in Ireland only, if you had then clicked a link that they had in the ad, and then you were like, oh, well, I don't live in Ireland, then you were misled into clicking, and that would be a transactional decision. I don't think it was only for Irish people, but never mind. Here's another quick example. So Thomas Cook doing their post a video of your strut for a chance to win £5,000. No other information either. They should have said, you know, competition, sorry, prize draw, or whatever it is. No, it would have been a competition, because there's a difference between competitions and prize draws. Competitions are judged on kind of subjective criteria. So in this instance, they would have said, post a video of your strut, and then someone would have judged that kind of subjectively. When did it close? Who can enter? How do you get the gift card? Everything like that would need to be in the actual tweet. And Twitter is not something that is judged to be significantly limited by time or space either, even though there's a character limit on Twitter posts, because the ASA would expect people to get creative with this kind of thing. They could have put the significant conditions in the actual video itself. There were lots of ways that they could have done so. So yeah. I would say as well, the only one I've seen that is genuinely limited by time and space in terms of significant conditions is actually Google paid ads. You know, the ones where you actually search something on Google and it comes up with a little ad. But even then, if you direct people to where the full terms are, and then the full terms would give a misleading impression of what was given on that tiny little Google ad, we would probably say the medium's not appropriate for that promotion, and we would probably advise against it. So, I told you I'd be flitting around. I'm going to talk now about beauty filters and before and after images, which I hope is going to be relevant to at least some of you. I meant to put 3.7 for that code, well, I'm really sorry, but it's meant to be 3.7. Marketers must hold documentary evidence to prove claims that consumers are likely to regard as objective. What we mean by that is things like this face cream will get rid of your wrinkles, but also things like film in cinemas Friday. All of those are objective claims. Whenever we give advice, any copy advice team, we always finish off our emails with the ad seems likely to be otherwise acceptable as long as you have evidence for all objective claims. And then 3.11, which is marketing communications must not mislead consumers by exaggerating the capability or the performance of a product. So when we talk about pre-production techniques, we mean things like, you know, before you take the photo, like styling, lash inserts, hair extensions. They're all fine to say. You don't need to say that you've used them as long as they don't mislead as to the product you're selling. If you are selling a shampoo, then hair extensions could make that a misleading impression of the effect of that shampoo. I've given the example here of lash inserts. So you can absolutely use lash inserts to fill natural gaps in the lash line. But if you're selling a mascara and you're using huge lashes, that will give a misleading impression of the product. And before and after images where only the after image is used technique is probably likely to mislead if it's related to the product you're selling. Post-production techniques are things like Photoshop, retouching, airbrushing. You need to hold evidence of what retouching has been carried out. And again, it doesn't matter as long as the retouching isn't directly related to the performance of the product you're trying to sell. So if you're making someone really tanned, but you're trying to sell a bikini, that's absolutely fine. It's not relating to the bikini at all. So as I was just saying, they're not inherently misleading. It's only when it exaggerates the capability of the performance of the product. There's no requirement to make it clear. If it doesn't mislead, it doesn't need to be disclosed. And if they are misleading, you shouldn't be using them at all. So before and after photos specifically, you need to hold evidence to show that it's representative of wider use. You couldn't have a before and after photo of someone who would have a very specific experience of a product. Photos shouldn't mislead us the capability, and you should hold evidence to show they're genuine and you've got the permission of the person to use it as well. So superimpose text or small print stating the effect has been exaggerated is likely to contradict the overall impression. So if you say, I'm selling a mascara but I've added lash inserts, as a small print, that's likely to contradict, so we'd advise against that kind of thing. There's loads of other rules related to beauty. I'm sorry I'm giving you such a whistle-stop tour. But it's section 12 of our code, and I've written all the beauty guidance on our website, so if this is something that you're interested in, I'd recommend having a look at that. Here's a really good example of something that exaggerated the performance. This was for a product called Skinny Tan, and they used a filter called Perfect Tan on the actual post. So this was posted originally by this girl, Ellie Norris, and then it was reposted by Skinny Tan. So it became their responsibility. This is user-generated content, but it became their responsibility because they retweeted or reposted it on Instagram. And because it was a tanning product, the filter she used, called Perfect Tan, exaggerated the effects of the tanning product. So moving on to hashtag ad. When is an ad? Basically, when do you need to label an ad? So the rule is rule 2.1, marketing communications must be obviously identifiable as such. So if you think of like a poster or a TV ad or a radio ad, you know that it's advertising. You don't need to hear on the radio, this is an ad that's coming up, you're going to hear an ad. That doesn't need to happen, whereas on social media, sometimes it's not clear it's an ad. It is clear when you're kind of posting it from your own kind of, say Avon is posting something from their Instagram page, it's obviously going to be an ad for Avon. But when it's an influencer, for instance, you don't know if they just love Avon or if Avon's paid them to do so. So here are the things online that we regulate: banner ads, pop-ups, paid search results, preferential listings. We also do in-game advertising, which is becoming more of a thing as well, if that's something you guys are into. Affiliate marketing, website content, as I said, social media ads, advertorial, which is influencer stuff, and APA games. Here's a really good example of marketers' own social media. So I picked on Avon again, and there's Arbonne. So this is Arbonne's Twitter page and Avon's Instagram page. So both of them are something that we would regulate and look into if there was ever a complaint. But here's examples of paid-for advertising space. So there's a promoted tweet from the National Lottery on Twitter. There's Instagram method ad, which is a sponsored post. And there's an Argos ad. I think that might be on LinkedIn, but I think there's a LinkedIn one coming up, so I don't think it is. That last one's on LinkedIn. And then there's a pre-roll ad in the middle there, and then that's Snapchat, even though I'm not on Snapchat, because I'm not young and cool. And here's some examples of advertorial. So when I first started working in the ASA, I thought advertorial meant things in the Daily Mail where they would kind of bleat on about turmeric or something, and you thought, well, okay, well, they're clearly selling turmeric. But actually, it can be more kind of subtle things as well. So if you look on the right there, you've got Gemma Collins advertising Skinny Jab, which is advertorial for the purposes of the CAP code. And then there's a more traditional, not turmeric, but it's Department of Work and Pensions on the left there for the Daily Mail website. Daily Mail and Metro working together. So when we talk about advertorial, and I'm mainly talking about things like influencers, so if you ever employ influencers to do some advertising work for you, what the ASA will look into to assess whether something's an ad and therefore needs to be labelled is, was there payment and was there control? So if you're using an influencer to sell one of your lipsticks, was there any payment? Did you give them money? Was there some sort of reciprocal arrangement? Like you said, they could come on holiday with you. I don't know why you would. Did you say they could keep the lipstick? Did you say that you'd give a donation in their name? Did you promise them kind of anything in response to them posting this post on Instagram or wherever it is? But also, was there editorial control? So did you ask them to post something? Or did you send them the lipstick and say, you don't need to ever post anything, just enjoy the lipstick? Because if you did say that, then there would be no editorial control. But if you said, we'd love if you could post online, we'd love if you could post this specific paragraph online, we'd love if you share this hashtag. All of these things are editorial control. The ASA would look for both payment and editorial control to assess whether something's an ad. So if there's both, that is something for the ASA, and they would probably request that the post needs to be labelled. Here's a case study, which is Brooks Brothers Limited. So this was someone who was employed to sell for Brooks Brothers, which is like a soup company. They were asked to post a specific number of social media posts about the suits, and they were asked to use specific hashtags. It was like hashtag made to measure, things like that. They weren't allowed to name any other brands, even though I don't know why they would have. So you can see in the caption there, again, I'm sorry it's really small, but they kind of, it just says, you know, loving this suit, made to measure, things like that. What isn't there is hashtag ad. So you have no idea if this particular person just loves Brooks Brothers or if he's been paid to advertise Brooks Brothers. And this is a classic example of when they needed to put hashtag ad in that caption to make clear to people seeing it that it's advertising. So who regulates what? So the ASA looks at things with payment and control, as I've just gone into. They've got to have both, but the CMA will look into things where there's just been some form of payment. So if you did send that lipstick to an influencer and said, do what you want with it, enjoy it, you don't have to do anything at all, that's the CMA's ballpark. We also look at affiliate marketing, and here are two examples. There's Stacey Solomon on the left there. She was getting paid for every time someone clicked through this post. And the girl on the right had done like an older style kind of blog post, which have kind of fallen out of fashion these days. But she was getting paid every time someone clicked any of the links in her blog. Both of these needed to be labelled. Stacey Solomon's on the left there was actually labelled, but if you can't see, it says ad in the corner in white font on a white background. It was very hard to read, and the ASA decided that wasn't clear enough, even though they put ad. You just couldn't see it, and even now I still struggle to see it. I've done this presentation a few times. So as I said before, Skinny Tan had reposted this content from Ellie Norris, and therefore it became their responsibility. It's fine when it's something like this, but remember, if you're asking people to, if you're an alcohol brand and you're asking people to post about the time they were the drunkest ever, that has become your responsibility, because then they're responding to your kind of corporate post asking them to do something. So now you're responsible for all these posts about drunk people. You know, it's not so bad when it's just someone who looks very tanned. So when we say something needs to be labelled, it needs to be prominent, as the Stacey Solomon one wasn't. It needs to be timely, so people should know before they engage with the content. That's more relevant on things like YouTube, where it needs to be in the thumbnail. You don't want people clicking it and then realising it's an ad. And it should be clear as well. Here are the labels that we say are okay. So things like ad, hashtag ad, advertisement feature, advert. You can see a theme with the ones that are always okay. Sometimes, which is when we think, oh, yeah, it might be clear, but I'd advise a bit of caution on the sometimes ones. So brand ambassador, free gifts from, on loan from, paid promotion. It might be in the future that we think paid promotion, for example, is absolutely fine, but at the moment there isn't a lot of ASA precedent for that. So I'd advise caution with those. The risky ones are sponsored, gifted, and affiliate. That's because we did lots of research into what consumers kind of recognised, and it was found that things like sponsored, it didn't really make clear what was going on. It wasn't clear that they had been paid and there was editorial control. Same with gifted, you know, were you gifted the lipstick and told to do nothing with it? You don't know. And the things we'd really advise against are things like spon, which is even worse than sponsored, because what does it mean? Brought to you by, in collaboration with, thanks to, it's just, none of those are clear. So if you always want to stay on the right side of things, we'd always advise kind of ad, advertisement feature, advert, and things like that. I'm going to whiz through testimonials and endorsements. So here are the relevant rules. 3.45, so you've got to hold documentary evidence that a testimonial is genuine, unless obviously fictitious. 3.47, claims that are likely to be interpreted as factual, must not mislead. So things like this face cream cured my acne, that is a factual claim, you need to hold evidence for that. And you mustn't feature a testimonial without permission as well, which a lot of people don't realise. This is only when you're featuring testimonials in your advertising, by the way. If it's things like Trustpilot and you have no control over it, obviously you can't do anything with those. So as I just said, testimonials that are adopted and incorporated into your advertising are your responsibility. I've got an example there on the right of a Twitter feed. It's a CBD company who've retweeted someone saying that they used to have anxiety until they started using this CBD product. They are now responsible for all of the claims that this person has made because they have retweeted it. It's not just retweeting though, it's liking as well, because it's a form of adoption and incorporation into your advertising. So if someone is making objective claims that you're not going to have evidence for, we'd really advise against kind of liking, retweeting the post, things like that. Yes, and there's the only one. So I'm really sorry for that kind of rambling whistle-stop tour and everything. We've got loads more information on the website as well. I'm very happy to take any questions that you have. I hope that was all relevant, or at least most of it was relevant to you guys. But yeah, we've got tons of stuff available on the website. Like I said, where the CAP Copy Advice team will give you pre-publication advice, which is a 24-hour service and it's free. If you ever want to speak to me again, but maybe you don't, I don't know. But has anyone got any questions?
I've got one actually.
Hello.
Hiya. The Thomas Cook tweet example.
Yeah.
There was a statement that said T's and C's applied and hyperlink.
Yeah.
That's still not enough.
No, so what they should have said is 18 plus, UK only, tag 3 friends with whatever, and then it should say full terms here with a link. Yeah, so they should have, if there wasn't enough space to kind of put it in the tweet, it should have just been in the video or something. It should have been there somewhere.
Would it be okay in like a direct comment underneath if it couldn't fit in a tweet?
I don't know if there's precedent for that. I would advise caution because you'd probably need to click something to see that.
Yeah.
So if it was like a tweet, for example, you'd need to click into the tweet to see the comment. I'd probably advise against it, but I don't think there's precedent. But yeah, maybe a bit risky.
All right, thank you.
No worries. Any more questions?